Hey folks, so John Company is one of the biggest games I've ever played. Not necessarily in terms of length, though it's up there, but in terms of how many moving parts it has and how they can all affect the course of the game. So, while I want to give you a few tips to help you out with your first playthrough, you should also keep in mind that because negotiation plays such a big role in this game, the makeup of your game group is going to have as much of an impact on your experience as any specific strategy would. Because of that, some of these are going to be a little bit general, but they should still help you navigate some of the more common pitfalls. So, with that in mind, let's hear my top 5 beginner strategy tips for John Company. The first thing you do in this game is family actions, and it's a great way to develop a niche for yourself by picking options that other players haven't taken. On the first round of your first game, I would recommend recruiting soldiers or riders, or buying ships if you've got a little bit of extra cash. Each of these 3 options will earn you money, and they'll also help set you up to succeed later on, either by establishing military control, helping you get other company positions, or getting you votes during Parliament. Now, ideally, what you want is to build on a strength that you already have, or to fill a gap that others have left. And if this works out well for you, on the next round, you can take the same action again for double the value. And while it's not disastrous to pick an option that someone else has already taken, the more you can set yourself apart from others, the better. If you get the chance, you should strongly consider your marriage options in the London season display. Yes, a lot of them come with some pretty scary looking setbacks, but you aren't meant to excel in every possible aspect of this game. So if one of them stops you from doing something that you weren't planning on doing that much anyway, that's hardly a detriment at all. The points and especially the retirement discount are often worth the cost. Now, you don't need to go overboard on this because you definitely can get boxed in if you have a few too many, but I think it's okay to have a couple of spouses. Spouses? Spice. Spouses. Yeah. So this is going to be the most nebulous of the strategies because it's really going to depend on your group, but by and large, you should be trying to make deals with other players. Deals that help you, but also deals that help them. These don't have to be big, but you should get into the habit of negotiating with your friends because then when you really need something, they're going to be more likely to at least hear you out. Also, you're playing as ruthless capitalists, so might as well get into character. If you're in a position of power and you're deciding which of your friends to help out, why not make it a bidding war? If you need a favor, why not ask the other player which promise cards they're interested in? You always have something to offer and usually have something to gain, so you should really make sure to talk to the people around you and see if you can make a deal. Now, besides the usual board game phenomenon of an early lead putting a target on your back, which is especially dangerous in a negotiation-heavy game like this one, there's just a lot that can go wrong between the first round and the fifth. And what I'm really talking about here is expensive retirements. Just because you can afford the best prize right now doesn't mean you're going to be able to afford the upkeep on it later on. And this is a bit of a tangent, but if you have multiple pensioners, it's usually better to put 2 of them in the 4-cost prize than to put 1 in the 8. The points and cost are the same for now, but if in later turns you can only pay the taxes on 1 window, you'll only lose half the points. As the game goes on, yes, you can focus on the more expensive prizes, but in the early game, you don't need to make a mad dash for points. Admittedly, this is a little bit harder to do in the basic 1710 scenario, but it's still entirely possible that the company can fail, and there's a few signs to look out for that signal that the end is near. If the company keeps taking on debt without paying it off, especially if it's got large armies or navies and it isn't making enough back on trade, well then you're definitely going to be losing standing due to failing to meet expectations or taking on emergency loans. That at least can be prevented by the royal protection, though. An overexpansive military, however, that can end the game real quick. You see, if you're taking too much Indian territory and installing governors on each of those spaces, you're probably going to be picking up a lot of unrest. If you get enough of that, you can suffer a catastrophic region loss from a single event, and then the game's just over. Now, if you think failure is on the horizon, you can either try to convince all the other players to shape up, stop messing around, put the company first. Or you can start grabbing workshops and avoid putting people into shareholder positions. And when you think about it, if you are in a position where you think you're better able to survive company failure than anybody else, well, then you can use all this stuff I've been talking about to ensure the company fails and just leave everyone else in the dust. And those are my top 5 beginner strategy tips. But if you like John Company, I bet you've got some good tips of your own, and I would love to hear about them in the comments below. Also, I leaned on BGG a little bit when I was writing this list, so if you want to go a little deeper, I've included a link to a pretty good discussion thread in the description box. Definitely check that out. And lastly, my Patreon backers get to watch videos like this a month before anybody else. So if that's something that interests you, or you just want to support the channel, consider heading on over and becoming a rules lawyer. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.